Welcome, everyone. We're glad to see you on another one of our Empower Hours sessions. We have some great guests with us this evening to talk about their experiences being an NPS NTEU Union Chapter. So we're really excited to hear from them. But before we do, I do want to give a quick little update on where we are with organizing. Let me get there slide deck up there. We are getting really close to filing our petitions. It looks like that for the Pacific West region, we likely will be filing before the end of this week. So stay tuned for updates on that filing. When we get there, we'll be certainly sharing out that information. The Intermountain region also is making great progress and is I believe they've set themselves a goal, a date to reach their numbers by. And so if you don't mind, Lee, I'll just turn it over to you to give the numbers update or the progress update for IMR.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to be here and talking about all of the power that NPS employees already have been building as the IMR and PWR regions are on the precipice of joining that. IMR actually just met recently and are so incredibly close to that 50% for their top around 11 parks. And so right now, the goal that we believe we're hitting is filing upon reopening of the government. And so as soon as basically we're able to file. And so they are making that final push. If you all are from one of the IMR parks and have not signed your 1187, your 1187 could be that one that it makes sure that they hit that goal.
Great, thank you. It's so exciting to have both regions really reaching it around the same time so that we're all in this together. And, I just think that speaking for myself and also I believe for Lee and everybody on the organizing committees who have been working so hard, we're just thrilled that we've reached this point and that we're ready to file those petitions. So we will keep you informed every step of the way as we get to those landmarks of filing petitions. Just make sure that you're tuning in to the Signal chats and checking in with your organizing committees. And as Lee said, if you have not had a chance to sign your 1187, every single one helps. So, continue to talk to your colleagues about signing those 1187s. So onward to our topic for the evening, our guests for the evening. I want to take a moment just to introduce our guests this evening. I think I saw everyone on the call, but I may have missed someone. So we have guests from our chapter 336, which is our National Capital Region. And if you haven't been on one of these where we've talked about this before, just to let you know, we have had a chapter, a National Capital Region chapter, NPS chapter, for a number of years, but that chapter represented non-professionals only. And so just recently, we had an election to include the professionals into that existing chapter. So hopefully we'll be hearing some details about that tonight. And then we have some folks from our chapter 296, which is our WASO chapter. So we have folks who have been working under that contract and can speak to us about the experiences in both of those chapters. So I'm going to let each person introduce yourself. That way I won't butcher your name in any way. And also you can tell us a little bit about your position within NPS, but then also your chapter and your position in your chapter if you play a leadership role. And if you're not in a leadership role, maybe your involvement in your union. And so I'm going to start with our chapter 296 folks. So if you are on here, Rudy, I'm going to start with you. If you would unmute yourself and turn on your video and just introduce yourself to us.
Thanks, Stephanie. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great. Um, so I've been chapter president for 13 years of the WASO chapter, and I've been an NTU member since 2003. We've got our chapter second vice president and our chapter co-chief steward, Alan Ellsworth and Paloma Belazny, also on the call. And we were also there at the birth of the NCR chapter. Uh, we were asked to go over to NCR headquarters back in 2013 or 2014 to meet with staff at lunchtime to hear about what it takes to create a chapter and maintain it. Because, there's all this excitement about signing an 1187, getting to that 50% mark, and then getting organized. But I was just on the IMR call. All those folks who are so active, they may not know it, but they're going to be the chapter officers and stewards of that chapter. Um, so that's something for everybody who's from IMR, AKR, Pacific West to be aware of, that the work just starts, um, and it really intensifies after you create a chapter because there's so much to stand up. But it's not terribly difficult, and you've got us and you have National Capital Region to ask how to do it.
Great. Thank you so much. Um, I'll go on now with Alan from our 296 chapter. Alan, if you're on, please jump in and let everybody know some information about you. Not hearing from Alan. Let's move on to Paloma and then we'll come back to Alan. Thought I saw Alan on the call. So, Paloma, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Hi, I'm Paloma Belazny, and I work for WASO Cultural Resources, and I am the chapter co-chief steward, and I mainly do representation work. And I've been a chief steward or a steward for a number of years. I can't recall, but I do a lot of representation work, and I assist our other stewards with doing representation work.
Great. Thank you so much.
And I was also on our bargaining committee for our most recent negotiations for our most recent contract, which was not adopted, but I was involved with that as well.
Oh, great. That'll be helpful as we move through some of these questions that we have prepared for this evening. Alan, are you there yet?
5 to 3, huh? Good for that.
Okay, then let's go. Let's see if if Michaela is on. Michaela Milton, are you on? If you are, just go ahead and unmute. Okay, then last but not least, we're going to go to our Denver field office and get to meet our field rep from the Denver field office that works with um, Chapter 296, and that is Fernando. So, Fernando, are you here?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Oh, okay. Hi. Yeah, hi, I'm Fernando de Juan. I'm the attorney out of the Denver field office that now represents chapter 296. I look forward to working with everyone. I just got reassigned the chapter. I had uh, National Park Service very early on when I first started with NTEU in 2010, but because of some staff changes, retirements, and so on, I was happy to be reassigned the chapter. Looking forward to working with everyone.
Great. Thank you so much, Fernando. We want to just get started right into the questions. And so I don't know, Lee, if you have the questions in front of you, but if you would like to start with the first question, I'll turn it over to you. Okay, I'll go ahead with the first question. Just give me an idea, and anybody, any of the guests can jump in on this question. But in light of our current political climate, and I think everybody is well aware that it's sort of anti-worker, anti-union, anti-federal employee. What role is your union playing right now, in terms of your members? Um, what is the role that you see your union stepping up and taking?
Tiffany, I'll jump in on that a little bit. Um, and I had spoken with an author, a writer from Outside Magazine. I think I was referred obliquely in the article that they posted earlier today by Frederick Reimers. How are unions helping NPS? And Polo and I have been involved with NTU for a long time, Alan as well, and we wouldn't have the contracts that we have. Paloma worked on our third contract, which was rejected by the org that Trump put in place back in 2017 at the department. But we have had two negotiations before that and two contracts. We're hoping at some point in the future we'll have that third one. But those contracts are strong, and because we have that contract, people have a measure of protection, particularly with the temporary restraining order and now the preliminary injunction that a California district judge ruled on. So, and every day there's somebody contacting us on Signal saying, "Hey, I'm worried about like when the shutdown ends if I'm going to be riffed." And that preliminary injunction still holds that off. And we know that they're itching to fire folks in regional offices and headquarters. But the union makes it possible to protect us from that happening. Paloma?
Oh, sure. You answered it, Rudy. I mean, I don't, yeah, you answered that.
Okay.
And I believe since we did intros, Michaela is now on. Do you have audio, Michaela?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Do you mind just going ahead and introducing yourself?
Yes, I had to switch to my phone, so I was having technical difficulties. Um, so I work in the National Capital Region in a park and was part of the organizing committee for the professional services folks joining NTEU. Haven't had previous union experience, but have wanted to be a part of the union for a long time for a number of reasons, and am glad to finally be a part of it.
And we're glad to have you. While I have you on the line, can you tell us just a little bit about your campaign to organize? I don't know if you were on the beginning when I kind of briefly talked about the situation, how the NCR had non-professionals have been represented for many years. And then just in the last few months, the professionals wanted to be added to that unit. And so perhaps you can kind of tell us what was the driving factor behind the professionals now deciding to organize, and when that process started.
Yeah, so my memory is not exact here, but I think it was in the spring, like around March, when everyone was kind of living in fear that Doge was slashing and burning, and we were all afraid we would be next. I mean, I guess we still could be, but there was just a lot of fear. And I think that finally motivated people to say, oh, the union may offer one layer of protection. So maybe I am interested after all.
And if I'm not mistaken, your organizing campaign went pretty quickly. You were able to get your signatures and file for election fairly quickly. Is that correct?
Gosh, I didn't think it was quick at all, but maybe in the grand scheme of things, considering it, we kind of started in March and didn't have an election till August. That didn't seem quick to me, but I kept thinking, can we get it before we're fired? Can we get it before we're fired? Thankfully,
Yeah.
but Yeah, so we formed a signal group based on there's an NPS wide chat and just posted there and formed our own organizing group. So first we formed a just NCR 777 signal group, which was 777 is the bus code for the professional services staff in the region, at least. I don't know if that's nationwide, but so that's what we called it. And then out of that kind of grew the organizing committee, the folks that were willing to put in the work to get everyone together and get 1187 signed. And so we hosted a couple of these Empower Hours for us to have folks who were interested in learning about the union find out more about it and answer their questions. And so me personally, some of the things I did, I took leave because we're not supposed to do it on vacation. I mean, on work time. So I took leave and then went to some of the parks that I knew we had professional services that we weren't reaching. And so I drove over there and I made some crayon signs and threw those up on a bulletin board. Talked to someone I knew there at the park to help me do that. And then other folks had different roles. Some were more behind the scenes. We created like an email, like a Gmail account where people could email us questions. I don't know. There were other people playing different roles. So.
And then when was your union certified? When was the election over? And when did you find out you were represented?
It was August. Joni would know probably more the exact date, but it was late August, I believe.
And you won your election by quite a big margin, isn't that correct?
Yeah, I was wondering why it wasn't 100%, but somebody sent in a blank one and one person voted no. Like, who would do that?
Do you remember what the percent was?
It was like in the 90s, maybe 97, 98% were for it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that just really, demonstrates how committed and how driven your colleagues were to have this happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you so much. That was a great introduction and a great sort of overview of your campaign and adding yourself to the Chapter 336 unit. We really appreciate that. And again, feel free to jump in on any of the other questions that aren't specific to your organizing campaign. We hit on this a little bit already, and we're going to pivot a little bit to really talking about the representation piece and what does that look like? And Lee, are you ready to take over now?
Yeah, sure. It's the
Okay.
night of technical difficulties, it seems.
It seems like it, yes.
There's a big storm, so if I get cut off, you take over. So yeah, we are actually I feel like the storm it feels appropriate. We are in kind of what could be seen as stormy times for federal employees. And we started talking a little bit about how a union is bringing people together and fighting anti-worker, anti-union sentiments. But um, can any of you talk a little bit more about what it's like right now, advocating for NPS employees, and what that looks like? How does it potentially look different than it looked like a couple of years ago? And how is the union continuing to kind of rise and meet each of these moments?
Yeah, I can. Um, we used to have a monthly Labor Management Relations Committee meeting with HR dweebs and sometimes a handful of senior managers. At one point, we had Deputy associate directors and even some associate directors joining us. Since the orcs returned to power, and by orcs I mean the administration, current, we have had only sporadic meetings of the LMRC. And they're now holding us to the language of our contract, which says quarterly or more frequently if mutually agreed. And they're not mutually agreeing anymore. So we're only talking to them once every 2 or 3 months. They ghosted us for many months on a lot of our communication. They have failed to officially notify us of consolidations, which is played into our hands because they may feel like they're going to get away with all of this unlawful activity. But we're documenting everything. We're working with Jack Jarrett in General Counsel. And there will be lawsuits against the Department of Interior and the Park Service to hold them accountable for the lack of official notice and the lack of bargaining. So that's what's different. But because in the past, when we caught them red-handed doing something, we dragged their butts to an arbitrator, got them slapped with an unfair labor practice, and also hit them with a $350,000 fine for retaliation against our employees. So, and we know that the people who are doing this with HR, they're career federal employees. So they're just following orders. A whole lot of people got hung at Nuremberg for following orders. So we're telling everybody document everything, even though we're not able to press a lot of grievances and cases and get results right now. We will down the road.
Thanks, Rudy. So it sounds like one of our approaches and strategies is that we are continuing to, as much as possible, act like a union. We are continuing to hold them accountable, document when we have the ability to have access to those various mechanisms, to hold an agency accountable. Can anyone speak to like how the members are coming together and what that response during this time looks like? And is that different, or is it the same? And you continue on, and the union has always kind of come together. I'd love to hear like how does it feel for representing the members and how they come together?
I can speak to that too, real quick. It took us almost 20 years to go from 120 members, dues-paying members, to 220 members last year, year and a half ago. And then this year we got up to almost 600 members. So the threat that was manifest by this administration encouraged a lot more people to join. So that was a great recruitment assistance to us. Um, and back in January, February, March, when we had our all uh, bargaining unit employee meetings, and we have one every month, sometimes twice a month, on Microsoft Teams, we had almost the entire bargaining unit on the call. We used to have our meetings in person, and Paloma and I would be 2 of 20 people there. And Alan would be on the call from Colorado and a couple others. And the pandemic helped us get really situated with Teams and having video calls but having 900 people on a call was awesome. But then we quickly realized, and we were encouraged by our field attorney, don't hold the meetings on Teams anymore. So we have a Zoom account. We created our own Zoom account. We have several signal channels for our members, for our stewards, for our officers, for our executive board, for us to talk to NTU, and then for us to talk with NCR and other chapters. But it has kind of gone up and down. And the shutdown has sort of put a muzzle on all of us. I think we're all hunkering down. There's been some concern. There's been complaints from members that they don't feel like NTU is doing enough. Why didn't they join the AFGE case with the federal district judge in Northern California? And that prompted us and me to reach out to the national president, Doreen Greenwald, and say, explain yourselves, please. They did. they responded immediately. So we were able to share obliquely where things were going. So that AFSCME complaint that the judge issued a TRO, NTU joined it, and now it's a preliminary injunction. So it's not all smooth sailing. There's always going to be folks who feel like you never do enough for them. And leadership is understanding that people are always going to complain, and you just keep working for them.
Thanks for that, Rudy. Paloma, did you want to jump in and add anything else about folks coming together during this moment? How it sounds like you all are building out networks that are incredibly strong and providing opportunities for people to connect in ways that maybe federal employees weren't connecting just not that long ago.
I actually wanted to comment on your first part of your question, which is about the representation piece, about working with management. And what I really felt a significant difference in this administration in that our management, our labor relations management, they don't have agency to do anything. And we can really feel that, and it slows down resolving anything. And it's a detriment. But it makes us continue to have our union timelines. It makes us move forward. But I could really feel that they were frustrated, and it did make it more. It makes it more challenging for us to do our job and get resolution for members.
It makes sense, making sure that we're kind of setting expectations that may change
Yeah.
during different administrations.
Yeah.
Yeah. While I have you, Pluma, actually, this would be a great time to talk a little bit about how we prepare for bargaining and how we identify what different concerns exist in the bargaining unit and how do we weigh those against each other and figure out what are our priorities. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Wow. Well, bargaining for our new CBA took a long time, and it was definitely a group effort. We based bargaining off of our 2017 CBA, so we weren't starting from scratch. I'll say that we were really revising our current CBA. Just maybe we should frame it like that. We're revising our current CBA, but we did query our members about topics that they thought should be included in a new CBA. And I can't recall. We did that fairly early on because you have to do that early in the process. But the entire process was led by NTEU. By Sarah Rieger was our negotiator. So everything was led by her. But we were able to give a lot of input on what our bargaining unit members felt should be added, or enhanced or removed from the CBA. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it sounds like you all did a lot of information gathering from the bargaining unit. Was that who gets to participate in giving that input?
So we spoke about the efforts to revise our CBA at our chapter brown bags. And so those are open to all. And Rudy, correct me if I'm wrong, but we didn't limit suggestions from anybody, right? It was open to all bargaining BUEs. It wasn't just chapter members. Because we talked about our ongoing efforts basically at every brown bag. So it was really open, suggestions open from everybody.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
And did you ever end up in situations where there were multiple different inputs and ideas on a topic or an issue?
Oh, wow. That was, it feels like a long time ago, and it's late at night. Um, I uh, those are some specifics I can't recall, but um, I don't feel like we had a lot of issues where that hmm.
Our chapter's unique in that there's almost nobody in the field, although we represent all of the law enforcement special agents who are at Yosemite, Yellowstone, Grand Canyon, Everglades, Denali, etc. Um, so, it's things like uniforms that hadn't been a thing before, but we focused on that a bit, especially since this was a joint contract
That's
Yeah,
what I
with
thought. Yeah.
NTEU.
yeah.
And so we definitely needed to work on that more. And there's overtime, and there are wage grade employees even within WASO. So this time around, we paid a lot more attention to it. Uh, so it was different than the first two contracts.
And our telework and we added remote work. So we got a lot of input about telework and remote work. We have a lot of telework and remote work. We had a lot of telework and remote work across WASO. So that was of utmost importance to our members. So we had a lot of input on that. And so we had a lot of questions about that. I'm looking at our CBA, which I reference all the time when working. But yeah, telework and remote work, we got a lot of input about.
A couple of questions. First, really quickly, we started to allude to it, but I want to make sure for the audience that this is clear. Can you talk really briefly that this was the first time that WASO and the National Capital Region bargained a contract together? Am I correct?
That's correct.
And so the contract that you all bargained was able to cover employees who work for WASO, employees who work, whether they are working in actual headquarters in DC or whether, like you mentioned, they are working either at a post of duty outside or are remote employees. And people in the field at various parks across the National Capital Region. You have a contract that can cover all of those various things?
Yeah. I mean, we
Yeah,
don't, but because it was denied.
right, right. But
Heard,
it's
understood,
ready to
but
go.
before you got to the denial, the
It
process
was,
of getting there.
we actually all voted on it, both chapters,
Yes,
and ratified it.
Yeah,
yes. That contract was ultimately denied by the administration, the new
yeah.
incoming administration, because you bargained with the previous administration,
Correct.
correct?
Yeah, and I will say there are some sections of the new CBA that just plainly don't apply to WASO members. There's an article on shift work. We don't have, I can pretty solidly say we really don't have shift work at for our WASO employees. So there are a couple of articles that were just bargained by our wonderful NCR colleagues that don't apply to WASO employees, and that's fine. That covers our NCR colleagues.
And so this ratified but not approved CBA would be an excellent model for the new chapters coming in.
Yeah, it sounds like that would cover the same kind of concept of these regions that have the regional offices as well as various parks and monuments and other sites across the area. Which also, it sounds like you all have kind of answered this, but you represent people across a pretty wide geographic region, all within 1 to 2 chapters. Um, uh, what has that been like? And this might even be a great opportunity to talk a little bit about representing employees at Albright and a victory that I think came out of there.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Lee. Yeah, we're not all just stuffed into the main interior cuckoo nest in DC. Alan and at one point 150 or more scientists were in Fort Collins. There was a whole bunch of folks in Denver and Lakewood. Um, we absorbed all the contracting officers from the regions a year and a half ago. And so we have folks in Alaska. I met with one of the contracting folks in Alaska when I was up there in September and brought hard copies of the 1187s for their effort to create a chapter, and also met with Denali staff in Healy 2 months ago. Um, we've always had folks all over the place. Natchitoches, Louisiana is where the National Center for Preservation Training and Technology is. We represent them. There's HPTC, Historic Preservation Training Center. They're not just based in Frederick, but they've got a major office in Flagstaff, and they've got staff who are working in every state in the country, every park in the country. So we have always been kind of a nationwide chapter because of where everybody works, which is everywhere.
Did you want to talk a little bit about that victory or I don't know if Fernando is able to speak
Oh,
on that one as well?
oh yeah, 4 years ago, we were asked to intervene on a situation at the Albright Training Center for 6 and then just 5 detailee instructors who had been uh, brought in on a 1 year detail to be instructors at Albright. One of them was sent home really early, so the other 5 came to us. And over this course of a month, we tried to help them. And management then turned around and retaliated for union activity and sent them back 6 months before the end of their detail. They'd been lied to. They'd been told that they would be made permanent at Albright. All of them had paid for their own travel and moved to Albright from Denali, Hawaii Volcanoes, Dry Tortugas, and other parks, 3 other parks, um, incurring thousands, tens of thousands of dollars of travel costs. It wasn't a PCS for them. So we sued the shit out of NPS. We tried to get them to meet our remedies. They refused. We crossed swords with the evil deputy director of the Park Service, actually associate director, Rita Moss. She's still there, I believe. And it finally went to an arbitrator. We had the great assistance, the great work of Arthi Prem Kumar, who was our then Denver-based field attorney. Fernando's now taken over for that portfolio. And she spent a year and a half on this. It took that long to get the arbitrator to rule in our favor and then work with the department's solicitors to say, you are going to take $350,000 out of the height of the Park Service budget and pay these people. And they got paid. So it was a major victory. There was an unfair labor practice posted. It came out of Learning Development's training budget. And, we did get some, it was good. It was one of our great victories.
Yeah, that's a really incredible, tangible story for people about how it may not be a quick process. And sometimes management hopes that we get tired through this process, but that when we know something is wrong and we work together and hold them accountable, that we can actually have real tangible changes that even when we can't necessarily, we talk about this a lot on the campaign, that we can't always bargain over every single thing, but we get to bargain over how things impact employees, that there are so many avenues to ensure that employees can be treated with respect and dignity.
Lee,
Going,
are you able to hear me?
Yes.
yes, please jump in.
Good. So, Alan Ellsworth here. I'm working through my phone. Not sure what's going on with my computer. Apologies for the late start.
Oh, and we can see you
Thing
too.
I would add, because I think Rudy and Paloma did a great job of laying out what a broad area we cover and the diversity of professionals in the Park Service that we represent. We have that same diversity within our chapters. So I was in the Natural Resource Stewardship and Science group. Paloma is Cultural Resources, Rudy's International, and those are just the three of us on here. I think that's something that has allowed us to really do a good job, I hope, of serving that broad expanse of peoples across the U.S. and those different expertise. So I think as we build new chapters, it's important to make sure that we do have a full representation from all those folks.
I think that was an excellent point to add on. Thanks, Alan. I want to really quickly kind of backtrack because I get asked this question a lot in the field, and you all are prepared to answer this, at least from your experience. Who sat across the table from you when you were bargaining a contract from NPS? What does that look like from an employee's perspective to be at the bargaining table across from management?
Bunch of incompetent boobs who don't do their work. Paloma, go ahead.
Oh, well, so so who was at the bargaining table, the teams table? It was labor relations. So whoever's head of labor relations for us, it was at WASO and NCR. And then usually whoever's their assistant. And then it's supposed to be, there's supposed to be some rotating management heads that come in. This time around, we really didn't have rotating management, certainly not from WASO. The management from NCR that came in was the head of administration. I forgot her name, but whoever was the head of administration at NCR would come in and help negotiate on their side. But those were the consistent players. But I would say that when we were actually doing the negotiating, we as on the NTEU bargaining committee, like we didn't do the talking. We gladly left that to Sarah and let her take that over. That made the process a lot easier, and we did most of our actual work preparing away from management. So we had hours and hours together with Sarah, who was our Sarah Rieger, our at NTEU. We spent hours with her and the team prepping for the bargaining table where we left the discussing to her. And for anyone out there who is concerned about that process, I was nervous about that, but I didn't have to be. Sarah just did a wonderful job in making sure that we were prepared, and we could of course add input during the process if we wanted to, if we were so inspired, but some of the discussions were very lawyery and didn't feel the need to contribute to lawyeriness. So, yeah.
This feels like an excellent segue. Fernando, I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about what it's like working with a chapter as a rep, and if you want to share any other additional victories that we've secured representing NPS employees, and kind of just a little bit about that relationship from NTU staff and the chapter.
There we go. Can you hear me?
We can.
Hi. Yeah, hi. Since I just took the chapter over in mid-September, I'm just catching up on what has happened with NPS and cases and so on that they've done. So I really can't speak directly to those cases because I wasn't involved with them. I've only had the chapter back for about 4 months. But as a field rep, I can speak to those that are on the call that don't have experience yet with how NTU is organized and how closely the functioning of the chapter, the success, if you will, of the chapter, whether it's communication with members or processing grievances, how that is managed directly with in tandem with the field office. And so that direct connection that the field rep has with the chapter leaders is it together serves the backbone, if you will. I couldn't do my work as a field rep successfully without Julie and Paloma and Ellen, but at the same time, they also look to me for guidance when it comes time to either if it's answering a question about, the DRP or answering a question about whether there's been a contract violation or what options do an employee have if they want to seek a discrimination claim. And so we work together so that I can give them the information that they need to pass along to the employee. And that to me is the what makes for the strength of NTEU is how closely, how directly the local chapters work with the leadership at the field at the NTEU field office level.
Thanks for sharing, Fernando. So, we're getting close here. I want to make sure we have time for questions from the audience. I've got one more question for our 296 folks. I know you all had a recent victory around telework. Does anyone want to talk about that?
Yeah, I was thinking through that as a response for Fernando. I happen to be the poster child for the telework issue. We had an arbitrator meet with us, and Dan Lackner, who is another one of our field representatives, as well as Fernando. And so Dan brought me in as an example. And I think one of the questions that you suggested we might discuss is, what are the great things in our CBA? Well, telework is one of those examples where it's really well defined what management and employees have agreed to. And when the new administration came in, let's see if I have my timing right, it was actually before the new administration came in, they brought us back and had a requirement for at least 50% in-office work. And that wasn't the understanding, nor the agreement that all employees had. Not what I had. I was working from home except for Wednesdays, going to the office. And so I was made to come in 3 days a week versus 1 day a week. And our CBA says that telework will be made available and shall only be taken away if there's due cause. And I was able to show that I had very high performance ratings whilst working from home, and therefore it was quite effective. And so to take that working tool away from me was inappropriate and was not part of our agreement with management. And so long-winded way to take us to the outcome of that arbitration was they agreed with us. And we're now in the current administration, and there's an executive order, so we're still trying to identify how that plays out in real time for employees. But we were able, because of NTEU, to walk through that process and show harm, that what had been agreed to was not being followed.
Yeah, that was so huge, and I think a really great illustration of, again, sticking to enforcing what we fought for and fought hard for.
Yeah, it was a huge win. It was a big boost to morale. That it was one. I will say that and our win happened pretty recently. I want to say it's September And so
Two months.
a remedy has not been implemented. So there's a difference between winning a grievance, the arbitrator winning in your favor, and having DOI actually implement the remedy. So nothing actually changed in the day-to-day lives of our BUEs yet. You know, we've had this interruption of a shutdown get in the way of that. But had we not had this shutdown, we would continue working with NTEU to enact the remedy.
Yeah, I like that operative word of yet.
Another thing that came out of that was recognition of our CBA. So the fact that the arbitrator heard that case identified that the CBA is still valid.
That's a great clarification too, that there's multiple victories that sometimes can come out of a case and setting kind of precedent and establishing factors that we use for other things as well. All right, I want to make sure that we've got quite a few folks in the audience. If we have any questions from the crowd, and folks, you are welcome to take yourself off of mute and just ask your question to the panel, or you can drop that into the chat, and we'll read that out if you don't want to be on the recording. And feel free to send questions anonymously to myself or to Stephanie, and we are happy to share those with our panel as well. Any questions? While folks are gathering their thoughts and seeing if they have any questions, uh, Alan, you brought up one of the questions that we were going to ask, which was what are some of the strongest parts of your contract? What are articles that you really rely on? Where do you see the most enforcement? But what are the things that people have really come to really appreciate about your contract? Did you or anyone else want to add more onto that? I see Paloma shaking your head. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Alan. Did you want to comment?
Oh, I had just a few examples. I mean, the contract offers there are a number of articles that address many of the things that affect our work lives. So just pulling three out, there is a risk process that has been worked out with management that they are supposed to follow, and they have not been playing by the rules. But they've identified that the CBA is an active agreement that's in place. Grievance procedures, just the process for us to grieve an issue, to work with management to ensure they're responsive to what our employees are experiencing. So just having that process in place with deadlines has been really helpful. And the performance evaluation is another one that's been an issue throughout my 32 years of work. And I've spoken with many people where the performance process doesn't go as well as it should. And so that's well described, what the expectations are and how to discuss the outcomes of an annual performance review. Those are three examples, and there's many more.
Those are good. Those are, I'm sure, really relatable for a lot of people. Did you want to add to that, Paloma?
Yeah, those are great. Performance evaluation for sure. We get a lot of performance evaluation related questions, issues, grievances. And then certainly telework is a big article, and telework has really changed since our 2017 contract. So, it really needs updating, but we're so glad we have this CBA. But definitely telework. is a big one. Yeah.
All right. I don't see any other questions, so I'll ask one more, and then if we don't get any others, we can wrap up. We have folks here who are located in different geographical areas. Has the chapter found that you have different grievances or different issues that arise in different offices? I see some head nods.
Yeah. Yeah. What came to mind for me with our locations is immediately was just conditions of like work conditions obviously can change in different buildings, but we've also had issues with transportation in DC. For main interior, our employees get to work primarily using public transportation, and so that we have an article on transit subsidy, and so that is a benefit that our other BUEs don't have. And so that's a difference right there.
Yeah.
Another one is some folks working in Colorado um, may live an hour or more away, and when weather's inclement, um, they would prefer to work from home. And we've had a lot of issues with really nasty, odious managers who will try to force an employee to risk their lives to drive their butts into the office when common sense would say, work from home today. And of course, now there's an administration that would heartily agree with that kind of ugly management. So we have in our contract a article about inclement weather.
So it sounds like you all are able to, a contract is able to be as expansive as it needs to make sure that we are covering things that maybe not don't affect every single person in the bargaining unit, but does address the needs of sometimes smaller groups of employees.
Yep. Yeah.
Great. Well, I think that we have reached the top of the hour. This has been
Lee,
such a great conversation. Oh, go ahead, Rudy.
just like to add that, you know, when IMR, Alaska Region and Pacific West Region do join, they have us and they have NCR as guides. We've been there before, but there's also a larger community there's 340 plus chapters, 100 plus IRS and 100 plus CBP. They're very different. Um, and we don't always talk to each other, but more recently we've been talking a lot to the IRS chapters because they're in the same boat as all the rest of us. Um, and there is NTEU training every year at 4 or 5 different locations so that you get to meet chapter representatives from these different agencies and you find out that you're going through a lot of the same things. So they're great resources for us. NTU is organized into, is it 15 different districts? We're in District 10, mostly non-IRS, non-CBP chapters in the DC area. And we have a signal channel for that. We actually have a District 10 and District 11 signal channel. You didn't know about that later, Stephanie, but we're talking to each other all the time. So we're always sharing hey, you guys have this going on, or what do you do with this? So there's a lot of cross-pollination among us. And so you know us, some of us have already reached out or even met online or in person, but there's even a bigger family out there.
That was really well said. The networks that you all are building, that you continue to strengthen, are what get us through all of this. With that, Alan, Paloma, Fernando, do you all want to, Michaela, add any final closing words for the NPS employees who are currently organizing?
I see a hand up.
Yeah, this is
And then-
Michaela. I would just say,
Yeah.
I'm not sure who all is on the chat from the Western regions, but for someone who works at a park and worked at a park before we got the NTEU, one example of how it has helped is management used to try to switch the maintenance schedule prior to a snowstorm so they wouldn't have to pay them overtime. And once the NTEU came, that they weren't allowed to do that anymore. So they had to get overtime for snow removal.
Thanks for sharing that. That's a really tangible impact of having the union. Thanks, Michaela.
But I don't have eloquent closing remarks like Rudy offered, but I would say something on par, which is if we can help you with this effort, we're glad to do so. That's part of why we're here tonight, supporting your efforts. So please do reach out to us if you have questions or if we can further assist with both getting yourselves established and operations after you do so.
I echo Alan's comment. If we can be of help, please let us know. It's so encouraging to hear other regions and parks forming NTEU chapters. I think NTEU is so supportive. The help that all of our chapter attorneys have provided has been incredible. I have learned so much from all of our chapter attorneys. I love representation work. It might be odd. Some of our stewards don't like to do it. I love doing it. And it is so helpful to have help from our chapter attorneys. And that makes it so much easier. And so it's just encouraging to see your efforts. So if we can be of help, happy to do so. Please reach out.
Thank you all. Fernando, anything to add?
No, I just want, I'll mirror what everyone else has said is that we're like a family. I know that sounds like cheesy, but we're like a family. We're growing and we grow as new family members come in and they become part of it. And it's an exciting time, even though things are seem like things are dark. It is an exciting time. I'm glad to be a part of this exciting time at NPS and get to watch the family grow.
With that, I'll hand it off to Stephanie. You want to close us out?
Yeah, sure. I just want to thank all of our guests tonight. We've gotten lots of comments in the chat about how helpful this was, and that people just really appreciate this information and your offer to see them through this process and help out in any way you can. I know everyone is really appreciative of it. I would just tell our participants on the call to keep your eyes open. We'll be communicating out information about filing petitions for our initial units in each region any day now. So just keep your ears open, and we'll be communicating that out. We want to be as transparent as possible with that information and be able to kind of celebrate in real time with you, because this is it's really a milestone that we're reaching, and a very for us at NTU, it's emotional to, like Fernando said, we're all a big family, and to be bringing bringing this to fruition and getting some initial units set up so that then we can proceed to add on to those units, just like Michaela described when the pros joined the NCR existing unit. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and sign off and send my thanks to everyone and wish you a good night. Our next Empower Hour is November 19th, and we'll be sending out more information about that one. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.